Shift happens, sometimes by choice, sometimes by circumstance. And when it does, you have two options. You can either cling to the life you've outgrown or step into the version of you that knows she's meant for more. I'm Gia Lacqua, trauma-informed empowerment coach and founder of Radical Prioritization. Welcome to What the Shift, the podcast for women who've outgrown the life they've built and are ready to create one that finally fits. Here we get real about the shifts that change everything: identity shifts, career pivots, relationship resets, mindset breakthroughs, and learning how to finally release what's holding you back. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just be ready for what's next. It's time to shift. If you feel like life is shifting, you're in the right place. I'm Gia Lacqua, and this is What the Shift. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Tamara, Frankfort, Odinec, and Shari Joseph. Tamara is the founder of My Next Chapter, a content and community platform that empowers individuals navigating divorce, launching in May of 2025. Tamara has had successful career-building, tech-oriented products that inspire people in new ways. She lives in New York with her 3 children and is happily divorced. Shari is the president of My Next Chapter and global brand marketing and communications leader with extensive experience driving innovative digital partnerships and best-in-class marketing. She lives in New Jersey with her 2 children and is happily separated, divorce pending. Welcome, Shari and Tamara. So happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about My Next Chapter. Tell us what inspired you to start the platform and maybe a little bit about, what it is.
Sure. I can start, Shari, and then jump in. This is we're in this together in every way. So I spent, as you mentioned, I have had a long career in tech and marketing and working on developing different businesses. And I'm always thinking about new ideas and have a small app development company that I started after leaving sort of bigger tech and bigger businesses. And about 4 years ago, I went through a major life change or shift, and I got divorced. My husband and I decided to do that after, a torturous period, sort of thinking about what was best for us and for our family. And when I made that decision, I felt completely alone and isolated, and there was really no one I could turn to. All of my friends, frankly, were married. My family, my parents had a long history of marriage. And I just was so surprised at the lack of content and community for people going through divorce, and sort of registered it back then, like, wow, this is a big miss, and found my way eventually through meeting different people and different professionals, my lawyer and my therapist, who really helped me. But it was always in the back of my head that there was an opportunity to really help people in that period when I was going through what I did. And fast forward, 3 years, about a year ago, it kept kind of bubbling up, and I started to ideate around it. And at the same time, that's when I met Shari, who had a similar idea, really to help and empower people going through separation and divorce and post-divorce life. And I really wanted to help empower both women and men to really face the challenges of divorce, but also to embrace and see the next chapter and move into that chapter in the most compelling and fulfilling way possible. So we started to ideate. Less than a year later, here we are. We have this incredible platform. It's called My Next Chapter. It's mynextchapter.com, and you would join as a member. We have an all-access complimentary founders membership, so you can join for free and access. It's expert-led and forward-looking, so we have experts across. We have a psychologist, we have a financial person, we have a lawyer, wellness. We really cover a ton of content areas across all stages in the form of videos, scripts, articles, templates that people can access. And then what's also truly unique is we have a community as well. So in addition to getting all this expert guidance, that's really one way. You can be in the community, interact with the experts, interact with others who are going through it, people who've been there, people who are at the same point you are. So we think we're doing something really unique, and we're excited because this was our mission a year ago, to really empower people. And here we are with the product. And Shari is my partner in the thick of it. Shari, you want to give your little?
Yeah, I can't believe it's been a year since we were brainstorming
this idea. And at this time, it was very, very fresh for me when I was going through, talk about life shift, but my dad had passed. There were, that was a significant moment. And my dad had a conversation with me a few months before he passed, and was a bit of an awakening to me. Like, really think about, like, what do you want? What do you want to get out? What you're putting in? And at first, when he had this harder conversation, I didn't take it so well. I'm like, why are you trying to rock the boat? What are you doing? And after he passed, and I really looked at all of my relationships, but significantly my marriage, and I saw how, someone who was supposed to be my partner wasn't really responding in the way that I would expect a partner to be. And the conversation with my dad really then stuck with me. I'm like, wait, he was actually giving me this almost like permission to reflect and do. And that was a big turning point for me. Like, wait, I actually have that power to make that change. And you do kind of think about what that impact will be, and a lot of research and searching. And like Tamara said, like, it's isolating. Like, you don't necessarily know who to go to. There's picture perfect relationships. And I always said with my girlfriends, I was single for a while. I actually didn't meet my my ex-husband till we were in our early 30s. And it was always about, looking at these ideal relationships, and you're like, I want that. And then when you're in it, you're like, well, the grass is always greener when you're telling your girlfriends who are single and successful women. And they, didn't really understand that. And now that I'm happily separated, I've had so many different great conversations with so many people. Tamara and I have really looked at, like she said, it's legal and finance and mental health and wellness, and when I'm ready, dating. But those that are, embracing their next chapter and thinking about, well, we're very forward. We're forward leaning and forward looking with everything that we're doing, expert led. And when you think about, okay, yeah, this is hard, there's a lot of exciting things when you shift that mindset and you could embrace your future. And that's really what we're all about. We want to empower others that are going through these types of changes.
Wow. And the fact that Shari's in the thick of it, although coming slowly rounding things out, hopefully. And I'm in the next chapter. It's been a perfect sort of complement in terms of how we think about the content, how we think about people's psyche, and that shift, right? So, because it's such a continuum and people are hit it at different points. So it's really allowed us to have a broad view in developing everything that we have.
That is absolutely incredible. And thank you both for sharing your story. There's so much there I want to touch upon. But first of all, 1 year in what you've created when you came together, that's pretty incredible in terms of what you've made happen. And the other thing is, you've created something that really hasn't existed until now, right? So based on your personal experiences, you didn't just navigate a personal transformation, you built a platform that didn't exist until you needed it. And now that will help empower so many others who are going through that process. Yeah. It's honestly, this has been my therapy through everything, like working on this and absorbing the content and thinking about, all the different aspects. I mean, a lot of the articles and topics were just based on even personal situations that I was facing, or others that we were connected to, other friends in real life. And then building this community is so important.
And I think that for me, I mean, I've accomplished a lot professionally and built products within big businesses and done other things, but it's the first time that I've been so passionate about something that I've worked on. And I think that that's allowed us to really accelerate, or for me to really accelerate sort of the development and the ideation, because anytime I have a spare moment, I want to think about it. I want to work on it. Unlike other things where it's like, okay, there's work time and personal time.
You don't want to stop.
No, I just can't stop. I'm addicted. And we're learning, even though there's no direct corollary in the space, which is pretty amazing to think, how is there not a community for people who are going through divorce? There are people who have tried different variations, and then there are other categories like parenting where people have done it. So we're trying to learn what are mistakes people have made that where it hasn't worked, and what are things that we like in other categories and situations that we can emulate and build on.
Got it. So tell us from each of your own personal experiences, what was the moment or, what was the experience that made you realize the life that you had worked so hard to build? Because as girls, we are sort of conditioned, right? We're all playing the wedding. I still see it with my girls, the bride walking down the aisle. What was the moment you realized that the life you built was no longer the one you wanted?
I can start. I mean, for me, there wasn't a singular moment necessarily. I think that my husband and I decided to get divorced during COVID, and sort of at the beginning of that first year, or at the towards the end of that first year. And I think that the quiet period during COVID allowed me to really take time to think about myself. I started meditating then and spending time inwardly, and um, realized how much we were surrounding ourselves by others, and thinking about others' needs and wants. And it was the first time that I could really think about what do I want, and my ex-husband as well. What does he want? And just that sort of that opportunity to pause and reflect, really without any pressure outside. It was really intimidating, but it also drove me to sort of make a shift.
Yeah, for me, it was, I would say almost it like hit me over the head more. Like, okay, this is now the time. And then you look back and you're like, oh, wait, there were moments that it could have done that. Or when talking to my mom, she's like, remember this time? Remember that time? What about then? It's to take that step and to want to, like you were saying, like, it's scary. It's scary to think about like what the potential impact on your kids are going to be, and how are they going to react and change for them. And you just want to be a mama bear. You want to protect them at all costs. And what does that mean? And then you start to realize that protecting them is actually to make you, like, looking inward, like your best self, and like the best mom that I could be. Hopefully, if there's, I'm the best mom that I could be, and he is the best dad that he can be. They have the best of both parents, but together it wasn't working anymore. And the conflict, and being in that situation in a home of conflict, like they feel that. And it's so liberating and freeing when you're able to physically separate, and the emotional, my emotional well-being just like went straight up. So it was really that shift when I honestly had to go through this significant life change of my father passing, but to realize that I wasn't having that partner that I needed. I kept feeling like I was there for him at all of his different life moments and stages. And then when I needed it, because I've been very independent, I'm a entrepreneur, a business owner, and I work really hard. And I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And the one time I really, wanted some grace and some support, I got it from everybody else, but not where I needed it. So I was like, okay, I got to be done.
And I think in our situation, there's also that fear, but it was different because we actually get along. We're just really better as friends. And we both knew that we wanted something more in other areas of our life to be happier and more fulfilled. And that comes also with a lot of guilt, in that you can't justify it because there will be less conflict really in the home. So then it's like, how can I make healthy decisions and ultimately be happier and model that strength and honesty and resilience for my kids, and just have faith that they're going to see that and they're going to get through that. It took a lot of work for me. And, there's still moments where I feel guilt or nostalgia, and that's totally normal too, I think, with any shift or transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I see that. And it also, when you reflect and you think about your kids now and how they are and what my fears were, they're completely alleviated. And my kids are doing great.
Yeah.
They're happy.
They're really
adjusted.
Kids are resilient. They're like, okay.
And people will tell you that, but it's hard to believe it.
Yeah, it's true.
It's
Although,
really hard to believe it.
it's funny because my girls, when we told them, were so like maybe 11 and 13, and really bore it, and had a hard time initially, and then have moved on and sort of now kind of embrace it in some ways and take advantage of it. And my son, who's now 12, is actually he's processing it more in a way that he didn't then. So, it's always there. As anybody will tell you who goes through divorce, you're always, if you have kids, you're always co-parenting and dealing with, the sort of life circumstance and the emotions associated with it. But it gets easier for sure.
Yeah. And they say it's a grieving process too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think with any life shift or change, right, you're grieving
Yes.
losses at once, like
Absolutely.
not just the loss of the relationship, but a loss of your shared dreams or your expectations for yourself, as you said, your identity, like what you grew up thinking you would do.
Yeah, and that's very hard for a lot of high achieving women, for anybody.
Right.
So there's a lot there, and I think it's important to recognize, just to kind of reflect back, what I'm hearing is that for some people it's more of a gradual feeling that comes on, and then for other people it can be the 2x4 upside the head, right? That sort of wakes you up.
Yeah.
And I love, Shari, your story about your father and your mother and the insights and the wisdom that they shared, imparted upon you, and how that shifted your perspective. And I think that's really powerful, because sometimes we are so in the thick of it and so close to it that we can't see clearly. Right. And I think that's certainly where the beauty comes in when it comes to coaching, therapy, having friends and family who really care about you, being able to see those things that you are often too close to see.
And my next chapter, having our
Yeah.
women community.
Yeah, I mean, that's with my next chapter. I mean, that's what we found. So when, Tamara and I have very different stories, but there's different pieces. I mean, I got a lot of insight from working with Tamara, and what she went through, and it's helped me, and all these different conversations, great conversations I'm having with friends that are maybe newly separated or divorced a few years or divorced a while. My relationships have also, shifted and changed as I've been going through this. And I like to say, like, it's like the sum of almost all the different parts, all the different people's stories is what has helped me. And that's what we're hoping to have and bring to others through my next chapter and the community, because with all the different members and sharing and questions, maybe their story isn't exactly like yours, but if you can take from someone's story over here and someone's story over there, you can piece together your ideal and embrace really your next chapter.
Also feel like heard, and like to know that what you're feeling, your emotions are normal. Like it's okay to have hard emotions, and it's okay to have moments, and it's okay to slip, and seeing examples of all of that, and then knowing people come out the other side. And I think that's huge. I really did not have that, and that it took me a while to like center myself and realize that I wasn't alone.
Or be okay when you're not spending time with your kids. That was like really hard. I couldn't imagine. I wanted to be a mom for as long as I, remember. I would have had kids on my own if I didn't meet somebody. Like, I was ready. I just wanted to be a mom. And so to think the thought of having to share my time was a detractor for sure of wanting to go through with this. And then you start to realize, okay, wait, they're having their own experiences and they're growing as humans as well. And their time with their other parents is valuable. And what am I going to do with my time? And now I'm like, wait, there's glimmers in that. And then I see more glimmers.
That's a beautiful reframe. I love that. And I think, like you said, that whether it's guilt, fear, grief, whatever it is that you're experiencing, going through, it clearly you're not alone in that. And to your point, you don't just wake up one day and it goes away, right? I think what I'm hearing you say, it's a process,
Yeah.
right? And it's something you work through, and it over time, I love the glimmers analogy, right? It transforms, I'm sure, into different things and evolves. So let's talk about the name. So you gave this incredible platform and community the name of My Next Chapter. Now, for a lot of people, divorce is often framed as an ending, right? So I love the fact that this is so inspirational of My Next Chapter. What does that mean? I get to create something new. I get to build something different. Tell me about, what did it start for you? What did it unlock for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that divorce is hard, as we've been talking about, and it comes with a lot of hard emotions that do sort of linger over time. But it also is an opportunity for growth and self-reflection. And I think there's my therapist talked about like post-traumatic growth. It's a real thing, right? Where you may experience like after a life disruption, it can include sort of personal strength or improved relationships or a new way to think about things or deeper authenticity. Like, who are you? And I found that to happen to me on like across all of these levels, really in a gradual way over time. And it took a lot of work. And we wanted to give people the opportunity to sort of sit with some of these hard emotions, navigate and deal with those challenges of the difficult time. We're not saying that doesn't exist, but then how do you help move people towards finding themselves and rewriting their story, and that those moments of personal strength and deepening relationships and the stuff that can come with a life shift. And my next chapter is where I am, and I'm happy and again, not perfect, but happy, and really wanted to open people up to see that and to reframe how they think so they don't get stuck in the sort of negative zone and they can find their way out of it sooner and embrace what can come from that change.
We're so happy to be able to secure that name, My Next Chapter.
Yeah,
I feel like it really resonated with people at all different phases. Because when you think about the process and the thought process and where things are brewing, or even just we're humans, we're living our lives. Your life has chapters. And yes, it can go based on like age progression or where you are in your schooling and whatnot, how you're moving forward in your career, and like as you gain wisdom and insights and life experiences, but like you're always like, okay, it's you're writing your book, you're writing your story. You have a next chapter even in your marriage, for those that are married and you're growing together, and you're going to have different experiences, or things may happen with other relationships that'll impact your marriage, a great marriage, and you'll still have a next chapter of your marriage as your maybe empty nester. So it's my next chapter does not necessarily have to be exclusive to those that are divorced. I mean, so we're expert led with all of our content, amazing experts. Our experts have firsthand experience with divorce. Our legal expert has been divorced twice. She remarried. Our finance expert also remarried after divorce. Our mental health expert is a child of divorce. And so it's definitely not the end by any means. I mean, it's all about what are your goals and looking at like, what do you want to achieve? And we have goal setting and helping people to get to what they want out of this next phase. And doesn't mean, what is it? What do they want? Do they want to love again? Early on, some people are like swearing it off. I do not want anything. It's about me. Great. But it's, everybody has their own chapter.
Yeah. And I think, Shari, you raise a great point. Like even in marriage, right, there are resets. And I think people, in life, we get stuck because we get so used to routines and used to sort of whatever the norm is. And the truth is that as people, we, based on our different relations and our opportunities and wherever we are, we shift and change over time. Our values may shift, our priorities. And a divorce is a forced chance to reset and rebuild around who are you today versus who were you at 28 or 9 or in your early 30s when you got married. But this is an opportunity for people at any point. It doesn't have to be divorce. That's why I love your podcast and what you're doing, because these shifts like really provoke change and give you an opportunity to like self-reflect at a point where you do have some experience. You're not coming at it with a certain societal expectation or whatever else in terms of setting your plan or path.
So Tamara has on her wall in her kitchen her family values, and I'm obsessed because I think about like how you're talking, Tamara, and like when your shifts, like even our kids are going through like their chapters and their shifts, and like you're like, okay, well, what are your values and like what's rooted at the core while things are shifting around you. So I love that you did that and you do that, and it's inspired me. But I think about how how we're trying to help people through it, or anybody.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's incredible. It's important for not only us to know. A lot of women can't identify their core values, right? A lot of women that I coach and I work with, and I ask them, they sort of give me this blank stare, like, what do you mean, right? So the fact that that's like your North Star, that's your guiding compass, and so your values, right, are going to guide the decisions you make and your actions, your outcomes, right? But then to instill that on a family level is so incredibly powerful as a parent, especially when you are going through times of change, to be able to help guide them and ground them and anchor them, right? And so no matter what situation they're navigating, if they can come back to what's truly important, I think there's so much power in that. So I think that is a great takeaway for all the moms listening.
Yeah.
Definitely love
They
that.
can be really simple, like
Yeah.
mind,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but yes, agreed. And actually, in my next chapter, one of the talks that I did is around growth and what are the different areas of growth, and how do you think about what's important to you, what your values are, and where do you want to drive like change? Is it spiritual? Is it family? Is it personal? And what are different ways that you can do that? So I think hopefully will help a lot of people there as well, because it's sometimes hard when you have been stuck and you haven't given that thought to think, like, what do I really want?
Absolutely.
Who am I? To your point.
Absolutely. So, and a lot of the work that I do, to your point, whether it's, going through relationship changes, mindset changes, career pivots, whatever that change is, a lot of women that I see who are quote unquote stuck, it is rooted in identity. It's rooted in who I was, who I've worked so hard to become, and being able to shift away from that, being able to release parts of it that are no longer serving them. And so I think that's a lot of the core of what I do. And I'm sure that definitely comes in with divorce as well, of, who am I as a wife? Who am I if I'm not a wife? And what that means, what that looks like. So what would you say in the work that you're doing? Two things, I guess. What do you see as the core drivers that are keeping women stuck in unhappy or unfulfilling marriages? And what would you say to that woman who is scared of that next step and scared of the unknown?
I mean, I would just build on what you just said, Gia, which is I think it's really a fear of like a loss of identity and who they are as a wife. It's a massive change. Like divorce shakes up everything that's like familiar, and really does require like a deep emotional adjustment, physical, all of your routines in your being. And people are scared of ambiguity and uncertainty. So I think, there are a lot of other reasons. We talked about kids and some of the difficult emotions, but I think that is a lot of it at its core. And that really applies to other shifts and change. And I would just say, goes back to what we talked about earlier, where there is an opportunity for growth and renewal, and to sort of really reset around who you are today. And as you'll see in my next chapter, you hear from us, like people who do make that decision based on how they think. Ultimately, they believe that they will be happier, or it's better for them, it's better for their kids. Ultimately, there is a path forward, and there is an opportunity to really discover who you are and find new meaning and get through it. And you get into these, eventually you start to get into these new routines, and you get into your new role as a single mother or whatever it is. And you find different joy and different meaning in that, in a way that you didn't expect.
I feel like a lot of people that are stuck too are givers. Like they're giving to everybody else, and they realize and they actually haven't filled their own cup. And like it's looking inward, like you're coaching, and like how do you just think about what you want and what you need? And somebody that's been unhappy, like the people around you realize that.
Yeah.
Even when I was single and looking to meet somebody, it really wasn't until I felt good about myself that I attracted that. And so I feel like it's, how can you just really think about, are you fulfilling yourself, but like not to, and to understand that trying to help yourself does not mean that you're going to like hurt others in the process. Your kids, especially with that in mind, if you're a parent, think that's the hardest thing to like get unstuck. Like your kids, you know, will be okay.
Yeah, and not only
better.
okay, I think it is an opportunity to open yourself up to having maybe even deeper relationships with them in different ways, to like
Yeah.
practice things you never did.
It's
And
so
with
true.
others in your life also.
And yourself,
And
probably, right?
yourself, of course.
Yeah.
You're rewriting your
Yeah.
The
story.
process of self-discovery as you go through those transitions and
Yeah.
changes. But yeah, I hear you, Sherry. I think that conditioning and the person we've become in terms of the giver and the people pleaser and keeping everyone happy, that I could see that being a big sticking point for women
Yeah.
for sure.
I even feel this in my like day-to-day work, right? When I'm trying to do too many things at once, like everything that you're doing is a bit mediocre, but when you could focus on a few things and do it really well, that's great. And that's what I've been translating into my time with my kids. Like on Sunday, we were just outside the whole day together. Like I put my phone away, I was just with them. And when we were all living in the house together and big happy family, I was trying to work and respond to emails and taking a call, and I didn't have the quality of time with my kids that I'm now seeing I could do and focus and achieve. And so that's another bright light.
It's incredible. So renewed sense of presence with them.
Yeah, that's similar for me. Although you have to keep working on it, because like my son last night was like, "You're working too much on my next chapter, and that's." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, wait, I gotta refocus here."
Yeah, of course, of course.
We still cooked family dinner.
That's every
Had
month.
everybody over.
Yeah,
that's so nice. I love that. So you talk a lot about empowerment. Tell us, what does empowerment mean to both of you in the context of divorce?
I think, yeah, it's really, I think it is about finding your inner strength and figuring out who you are, and not just settling with where you are and what cards you've been dealt, but really taking the opportunity to um, to reflect. And we've spoken a lot about this, and think about what is your personal power, and how can you bring your best self and your happiest self to the world, to your kids, to your family. And I think that's how I view it.
Yeah. I equate it very similarly, and it's like courage. It's like, the empower the power, to do what you need to do. Arm yourself with the support, the community, the resources, whatever you need to then take that next, sometimes scary step, but hopefully to achieve a much better you and for the people around you in return.
And so just before we wrap up, I would love to know for our listeners, the $1 million question is, what is the one shift that changed everything for you? And another way to think about that is, what's the one thing you want people listening to walk away with?
That's hard.
That's a big question.
Wow.
I've had a few
No pressure.
in life, like career shifts too, that like was the first step, like working in corporate, and going off on my own for the first time, to build my business. I would say that's the first like big shift, but there's like a lot of parallels when you make that shift, too. And like I was kind of always scared of like, when's that next like income or that client, like you kind of want to say yes to everything. And then you realize, oh wait, how are you just saying yes to the things that are like good for you? Like it's and that shift then with my work, that was about 10 years ago when I made the work shift from corporate to self-employed and building a business. And even now making that shift and that decision to separate, and divorce was very similar. It's like, okay, wait, let's take that fear out, and I don't know if excitement's the right word, but it's like there is a bit of an excitement of like what's possible, when you really focus on what brings you light and joy and goodness. And so I'd want people to take from that shift is like really that reflection of what is it that you need and want at this time, and that can change, and that's okay. Like you're writing your next chapter, but you're not writing the end of your story. Like, it's really just another, it's the evolution of your life story. And could be very exciting.
Beautifully stated.
So I would say, an easy answer would just be my shift was my divorce, but that isn't really true because, of course, my divorce was a major life transition and change. But in the year or two after my divorce, I was still very much stuck in some of my like underlying kind of fears and expectations for myself. And I was scared to be alone. And I thought that I had to find someone else to be happy. And it was really like a couple years ago that I working with my therapist and meditating that I started to really think about what do I want and what do I want to focus on and who am I and what makes me happy when I'm alone and why can't I be alone? And I really discovered a lot about myself and started to, practice things try things that I liked when I was younger. And I started to crave my alone time and really, really feel confident about who I am and how I wanted to show up. And for me, that was the biggest shift. And what I would say to people is none of this is easy. It's all hard. And if you are going through, whether it's in your marriage and you're uncertain, or you've actually made the decision to separate and divorce, and you're going through that life change, like be patient with yourself, give yourself time. It takes practice and experience and work and learning to figure out who you are and what you want, but that opportunity exists. And if you want that, you will get that.
I love that. And as you're talking, Tamara, what's coming up for me is kind of like, well, yeah, life is hard, but it's also choose your hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
And
I think
it's okay to have two feelings at once.
yes, to
Like,
hold space for both.
it can still be hard on some level, but then
For sure.
this other new stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, going through this is a lot of two feelings at once.
Yeah.
And they feel like they're completely different feelings. You can be sad and happy.
Or almost conflicting, right? But it's like, how
Mhm.
do we hold space for both?
Yeah. In my next chapter, we
Hard.
talk about that. It keeps coming back to that all the time.
Yeah. And you also raised two of the most important questions that I think any woman can ask herself no matter what they're going through, which is who am I and what do I want?
Yeah.
Because we don't do that enough. So I think that's
who
really,
am I and what makes me happy?
yeah, what makes me happy?
Yeah.
What makes me fulfilled?
And we don't give ourselves grace. I feel like a lot of advice, like people always say to me is like, well, give yourself some grace, give yourself some grace. And I realized that you kind of need other people to give you some grace too, because society and like expectations, like my clients don't stop asking for things. Friends say, oh, take the time you need, but then I get a call and they need something from me separate. I'm like, okay, well, there's only so much time, but you have to give yourself grace. It's hard to do when you're a giver.
Great advice. Thank you so much for being here, for both of you, for sharing your story and your expertise. This has been such an impactful conversation.
Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell us where our listeners can find more about My Next Chapter.
So
you could
sorry, go ahead, Shari.
We're so eager. You can follow My Next Chapter on Instagram at My Next Chapter Official, or you can go to mynextchapter.com.
And we have, we're so excited because we really want to help as many people as we can. So we are, as I mentioned, offering this all access founders membership. So our content, our community, in May when we launch. So everyone should go to mynextchapter.com and sign up.
Perfect. I love it. And you can see the passion in the work that you're doing that comes through. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And thank you for being here and sharing your story and your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You too, Gia.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Now go make shift happen. All right, Shifter, that's a wrap on today's episode of What the Shift. But here's the thing. Awareness is just the first step. The real shift happens when you decide to do something with it. So before you go back to business as usual, ask yourself, what is one thing you are done carrying? What's one shift you're ready to make? And if this episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Hit subscribe, leave a review, and send it to a woman who needs to hear this, because we shift together. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to take the next step. And I'll be right here next week, ready to shift with you. This is What the Shift, and we are just getting started.